What started as an armed robbery turned into a kidnapping and a rape and a murder. They definitely escalated. On September 2, 2002, Bianca Adams, along with Richard Cobb, robbed a convenience store in Rusk, Texas. At the time of the robbery, Candace Driver and Nikki Dement were working in the store, and the only customer present was Kenneth Van Dever. Van Dever, who was described as mentally challenged, often hung around the store, helping clean and take out the trash. At approximately 10 p.m., Adams and Cobb, wearing masks, entered the store. Cobb carried a 12-gauge shotgun. Adams ordered Candace, Nikki, and Van Dever to the front of the store and demanded the money in the register. After the women complied, Adams demanded the keys to a Cadillac parked in front of the store. Candace Driver, who had borrowed the car to drive to work, retrieved the keys from the back room. Adams then ordered the three victims into the Cadillac with Adams and Cobb, and Adams drove toward Alto, Texas. During the drive, Adams removed his mask after Nikki recognized him because they had gone to school together. Adams then repeatedly told the victims that they would not be hurt, and that he just needed money for his children. At some point, Adams turned off the road and drove the vehicle into a field that was described as a pea patch. The group got out of the car, and Adams ordered Candace and Van Dever into the trunk. Adams then escorted Nikki away from the car and sexually assaulted her. After leading Nikki back to the Cadillac, Adams released Candace and Van Dever from the trunk, and he told the victims that he and Cobb were waiting for Adams's friends to arrive. Sometime thereafter, Adams decided to let the three victims walk away. He reconsidered a few moments later, however, and feared the victims would reach a house before he and Cobb could get away. Adams and Cobb then made the three victims kneel on the ground. He tied the women's hands behind their backs using their shirts but left Van Dever unrestrained. The victims were unable to remember who was carrying the shotgun through these events. Adams and Cobb stood behind the victims for several minutes, and the victims could tell they were discussing something, though they were out of audible range. Kenneth Van Dever probably didn't really realize gravity of the situation until right before he died. Van Dever had lived a normal life in the Dallas area until an accident robbed him of short-term memory. Just before the shooting death, Kenneth was going along with it. But at the last minute he stated screaming, "Hey! This isn't funny. I have to get home and take my medication." It was during that outburst, when they were kneeling, that he was murdered. The women then heard a single shot. Adams asked, "Did we get anybody?" and Candace answered, "No." They heard a second shot a few moments later, and Kenneth Van Dever cried out, "They shot me." A third shot struck Nikki. When Nikki fell forward, Candace fell forward as well, pretending to be hit. Adams, carrying the shotgun, approached Candace and asked if she was bleeding. Candace did not answer, hoping the men would believe she was dead. When she did not immediately answer, Adams said, "Are you bleeding? You better answer me. I'll shoot you in the face if you don't answer me." Candace answered, "No, no, I'm not bleeding." Adams then fired the shotgun right next to her face, and, though the pellets only hit her lip, she did not move, pretending to be dead. Adams and Cobb turned to Nikki and asked her the same questions. She feigned death, and the men started kicking her when she did not answer. Adams then grabbed her hair and held up her head while one of the men shined a lighter on her face to see if she was still alive. Nikki continued to play dead. Cobb and Adams started to viciously kick her repeatedly to see if she would cry out. But Nikki gritted her teeth and stayed silent. Cobb picked Nikki up off the ground by her ponytail. She stayed limp. Her eyes were partially opened but she managed not to move them. Nikki ultimately convinced Cobb and Adams she was truly dead. Candace heard Cobb say, "She's dead. Let's go." That was the only time any of the victims heard Cobb speak. After Adams and Cobb left, Candace and Nikki, each fearing that the other was dead, got up and ran in separate directions. Candace had minor injuries, but Nikki had been shot directly in the left shoulder. By the time police arrived at the pea patch, Vandever, who had been shot in the chest, had died from the shotgun wound. What started as an armed robbery turned into a kidnapping and a rape and a murder. They definitely escalated. Nikki said when the masked men came into the store at which she was clerking she didn't fully understand what was happening. Later, she would recognize the two as fellow former students of Rusk High School. During the abduction, Nikki tried reasoning with the two of them to avoid violence, going as far as to share details of her life with Adams, who had removed his mask at some point after leaving the store. "I was trying to make them understand we were human," she said. "I was hoping for the best but never sure about what they were going to do. I did not have clue what was going on." But her efforts to convince Adams otherwise did no good. "I had to outsmart them. I had to play dead," Nikki said. "Thanks to the good Lord. I feel he had his hand on me the whole night." By playing dead she probably saved hers and Candace Driver's lives. What if she had given in to the kicks and cried out? They probably would have double-checked and killed all of them. They kicked her to the point of cracking a cartilage in her ribs. After Cobb and Adams left them for dead at the scene, Nikki rose and slowly trudged away in great pain, looking for help. She had been savagely beaten, sexually assaulted and was covered in her own blood. She had broken ribs and a gunshot wound and she had to fight to walk. She walked roughly half a mile. At one point she saw car lights and she got on another path that was completely dark. She was glad she did because it was their car lights. By switching paths, Nikki avoided being caught again by Cobb and Adams. She finally reached a house and help was summoned to the scene. All law enforcement agencies involved pulled together and had apprehended Adams and Cobb within 16 hours, about 25 miles to the north in Jacksonville. This was easily one of Rusk's most brutal crimes as well as one of the strongest in terms of evidence. The fabric of the community is hurt and frayed whenever there is a crime like this. It shocked the whole community. Authorities believe Cobb and Adams, fresh off a spree of recent burglaries, were in a pattern of escalation when they abducted the three. There were plenty of mitigating factors to choose from for capital murder charges: kidnapping, sexual assault, aggravated robbery. Plus, Cobb was on probation. Cobb was 18 and Adams was 19 at the time of the crime. Evidence tied the two to a string of robberies that happened around the same time. During the guilt determination phase of the trial, Cobb admitted to participating in the robbery and kidnapping and to shooting Vandever. He testified, however, that Adams pressured him into committing the murder, threatening to kill Cobb if he refused to take part in killing the three hostages. The state cast doubt on this portion of Cobb's testimony by getting him to admit on cross-examination that he did not mention any coercion by Adams when he first confessed to the authorities. Moreover, the other surviving witnesses did not corroborate Cobb's testimony that Adams threatened him. Cobb offered a full confession. Adams only partially confessed. In September 2002, a Cherokee County grand jury indicted Adams for murdering Kenneth Wayne Vandever during the course of committing a felony. The jury recommended capital punishment. The court sentenced Adams to death by lethal injection. After all his appeals were rejected, he was executed by lethal injection in Texas on April 26, 2012. Cobb was also convicted of capital murder and sentenced to lethal injection in January 2004. He'd been on death row for a decade and has all but exhausted his appeals. He was finally executed by lethal injection in Texas on April 25, 2013, almost exactly a year after Adams was executed.